So, Pat found this article in the news, and once again, carnivore is being presented as dangerous for our health. So, I wanted to take a look at this because, well, honestly, it's just shocking to me how often carnivore is presented as something that's going to harm us. The article, so in the article, the carnivore diet is the, oh my goodness, can't speak today. The carnivore diet is one of many trendy eating fads. And we've been treated to a cautionary tale. So this is the first paragraph. So it's obviously not a news article. Sorry, okay. Somehow it showed up when he was looking for health news. I want to start there because this kind of article should not show up when we're looking for news. But now, this is two sentences in, and you can already tell that there's a certain stance towards carnivore that this author has. And he says this is a trendy eating fad that causes cholesterol to leak out of people's bodies. Bonus word. Have you ever had cholesterol leak out of your body while you were doing carnivore? I want to start there because I'm only 11 months in. Maybe I haven't been doing it long enough. I want to ask. I've heard so many people talk about being 10, 12 years in. Haven't heard anyone say this, but I'm just wondering for you guys, have any of you, if you've had this happen, please put it in the comments because I need to know if this is something that's actually happening. Now, I found it intriguing when it said that the carnivore diet, also known as keto, because this tells me that the author didn't even take the time to fully research the diet that he was planning to crap all over today. This is obviously an opinion piece, not even an article. And first of all, carnivores aren't eating vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, or legumes like the people who do keto can actually do. There's no fruit, right? There's like they're not eating those things. And by the way, it's not because you can eat all the fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and legumes, low glycemic ones. It's not because you can eat all of those things. That means that you will eat all of those things. I did carnivore sorry, I did keto for 3 years, eating only meat, fish, poultry, eggs, avocado, olives, and a salad every other week. It actually worked out that I was having 2 times a week veg with my occasional salad, making it 3 times once in a while. So that very little bit of vegetation that I was eating still meant that I was doing keto, not carnivore. The point that I'm making here is that if you're carnivore, you're not eating vegetation. So, in my opinion, carnivore is actually a subset of keto, not the same as keto, the same way that keto is a subset of low carb and not just the same as low carb. They are different. That's why they have different names. And, also known as, I just want to back up a minute. Like if I say, like for example, this is a mug. It's also known as a cup, and in French it's known as a tasse. But this is referring to the same thing. That has implications for what you're gonna like you what you call it keto. Calling it keto will let people think they can actually have vegetation when they're doing carnivore. And again, you're mixing definitions. Now, I will say that the author goes on to state that carnivore The carnivore diet will force you into ketosis. It's going to force you in. The implications for your body, it's like your body wants to be in ketosis, and he's talking about it like your body doesn't want it, right? The implication is that it's making your body do this thing that it absolutely doesn't want to do. But I want you to listen to this.
You can take a newborn baby and the baby can breastfeed or bottle feed. And then within an hour, the baby is in a deeper state of ketosis than an adult would be after fasting for for a full day. I mean, that baby will be at 2 millimolar ketones in an hour. And an adult, and for me, if I want to get to 2 million, I got to fast for like 36 hours to get to that point. And I mean, so if there's any natural state, kind of back to our conversation a moment ago, it is clearly that a natural state is a state of ketosis. We are such totally unique creatures where we are the only land-based mammals born obese and the only animal who has a brain that is larger than the birth canal, much to mother's chagrin. But that means we have these very big, hungry brains and all of this chubby, adorable baby fat that is just producing ketones like gangbusters to fuel the brain growth. And if you have a baby that is born premature and lacks sufficient adipose tissue, it is much more likely that they're going to develop neurological disorders.
Actually, Wellness Warrior, I want to point out that the Dr. Bickman is helping us to see that we're born in this state of ketosis. Our body wants to be in ketosis. Like this, we 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 thrive in a ketogenic state. We are the ones, so us adults, we're the ones that pull babies out of their ketogenic state by feeding them fruit and cereal as their first solid foods. We don't give them meat and fat, what their body would actually naturally be looking for. We give them fruit and cereal and vegetables. And we kind of hold off on the meats. I don't know why, but those are the instructions I was given 20 odd years ago when my daughter was born. And now, today, I understand that it was a mistake. My point is, our bodies are delighted to be back to a ketogenic state. It's the reason that most people feel energized and they drop a bunch of weight when they they get back into their ketogenic state. But can you believe that that's not even the reason that I wanted to talk about this article today? We still haven't reached that yet. The reason that I want to talk about this article is because there's a huge difference between our body leaking cholesterol and us having xanthelasma. If you knew how many times I had to say that word to figure it out. Xanthelasma. Now, I had this image in my head of this poor man just having oil leaking out of his body, and like the way that that sentence is written. But at in fact, what's happening is he had yellowish nodules on his palms, soles, and elbows. Um, can I point out that xanthomas, which is what those things are, look more like flat skin tags, which is what you can see on this person's eye, on the top and under the bottom corner and over on the side too. Like that's what that is. It's more typical for people to have them around their eyes. And although the author made it sound like this man was like leaking oil from everywhere, you kind of see in this part of the article, which was really far down, that first of all, it's linking to the actual JAMA article. So that's Journal of American Medical Association, I believe. Um, I went to the article, and what he has written in this complete article that he wrote is basically a rewrite of the abstract of the JAMA article. And the JAMA article is a case study of this man. Now, I don't have access to the full article. I saw the same abstract that he saw, and when I reread the article, I realized he just took the abstract and turned it into, and I keep calling it an article. It's an opinion piece. And it's not even a good one. It's full of run-on sentences. I mean, this was horrific to read, by the way. But what's kind of annoying to me is yellow nodules, hands, soles. I know that I've seen those on people's faces before, right? I'm sure that you guys might have seen this on people before. But I want to just, there's no actual oil coming out of this person's skin, right? Not beyond normal, not beyond what you and I live of, like, if you get a little, if you do a lot of exercise or something, yes, of course, it's normal to have some oil on the outside of your body. That's normal. But it's not gushing like the way that the article starts off making it sound. The cholesterol looks like that, like a flat skin tag. So, can I point out, Wellness Warrior, that picture, when I looked it up, so that xanthoma made me realize how many people I've actually known and know to this day who have xanthomas around the outside of their eye and in the corners of their eye and on their eyelid. I know people today who have those. I just didn't know what they were called. And most of them had something very interesting in common. I'm going to come back to in a moment. Now, I've also known people who've had them on their elbows and their knees. I've seen that too, less frequently. Those people also had something interesting in common that I can pinpoint in my mind. My question is, did carnivore cause those issues? Because he was reportedly 8 months carnivore prior to the xanthomas on his hands, his elbows, and soles of his feet. Now, they describe his diet, and they said that he was having 6 to 9 pounds of cheese, butter, additional fat, and ground and hamburger. So all of that combined, 6 to 9 pounds. I'm assuming they mean per day. They don't say what else he's eating. They don't say if he's eating anything else. So now I'm because they say he lost weight, had increased energy, and improved mental clarity. I'm kind of back and forth. Like the abstract that this opinion piece is based on doesn't clarify why he started carnivore. And I think that's a huge, important piece of the puzzle that we're not given. So I'm skeptical on some level that the diet caused the xanthoma for a few reasons. First of all, I wonder, he was definitely trying to do carnivore with what he says he was eating, but was he actually doing carnivore? With the way that this man described what his diet, did he have more, like if you read the actual full article, so the JAMA article, do they talk about him eating other things? And maybe this person paid for that article. I didn't buy the article, so I don't know if in the actual article they say something else. But if he was eating other carbohydrate things, then it could explain how he was able to eat 6 to 9 pounds of high fat food and get it in. The reason I'm skeptical about that part, and I'm starting there, when I was doing keto, I was eating vegetables and pork belly as a meal. It was one of my meals. Absolutely, I could eat a slice of pork belly, so and they come sliced from Costco, so they're all about the same size. They're pre-sliced. I was able to eat a full slice of pork belly and vegetables and eat it. When I did carnivore, I had one slice of pork belly as a meal and could not eat it. I couldn't get down. I am not able on carnivore to eat one full slice of pork belly like I was able to do back when I was eating carbohydrates. That's the first thing that makes me wonder if this person was actually doing carnivore when their xanthomas might have either showed up or gotten worse. So this is the other problem that I have is that they don't tell us whether or not he had any around his eyes to begin with. So maybe they were already there and we just weren't told that they were around the eyes, and they focus on the fact that, and he might have focused on the fact that, oh my gosh, they're on my hands and feet and knee and elbows. Also, xanthomas on your hands and feet and elbows are much more intense looking than the ones around your eyes. Again, could explain why he was more concerned about them. Sometimes they're on top of each other. I've seen some pictures that were much more intense. I didn't put them here because it's not the point that I'm making. This isn't about the xanthoma specifically. So, the other issue that I have with saying that his diet caused the xanthulama that he ended up being diagnosed with is that people with xanthulama diagnosis also typically have diagnoses of diabetes, thyroid issues, obesity, and other metabolic issues. So, being overweight is a metabolic issue, and xanthulama is associated with metabolic issues. He was already, so there's a question mark. Would he have already been on the path to these xanthulasmas showing themselves, and it just happened to happen during this 8 months period of time when he was doing when he was trying to do carnivore? So the people that I knew who had the xanthulasmas around their eyes were all obese, are all obese. I still know a few of them that they have it. They're obese. Now, the people that I know that have them on their elbows and knees have eczema, like intense eczema. So again, there's like this thing for me that I'm like, I didn't know what they were called, but I find it interesting. The focus of the original article or the original case study was the hands and elbows, right? But we don't have all the data about this person's history in just the abstract. I find it very interesting that that article, which is focusing on what's going on with his hands, elbows, and knees, goes straight away to, hey, he changed his diet. And that must be the reason that his xanthomas started to develop on his hands and elbows. And when his diet is an 8 month thing, and he'd been eating probably like normal diet, standard diet before that for 40 years. So we have a tendency to focus our attention on the things that are diet related when it's convenient. But then eating sugar, for example, is never pointed at as a reason that you have diabetes. No, no, that's never. It's always something to do with fat. So even though it's a sugar issue, like so too much diabetes, too much sugar in your blood, but somehow it was the fat we were eating. So I just wanted to point that out as one of the reasons that I'm not so much. I'm skeptical. That was my point one of why I was skeptical that it could be the diet that's causing this problem. But there's more, wellness warrior. Um, so Dr. Berry has also helped me to just not be afraid of cholesterol. He pointed out that our body makes 3,000 milligrams of cholesterol every single day because we need it. If we eat a little, sure, our body will make a little less because we ate some. But if we don't eat enough, our body makes it. Every cell in our body is partially built with cholesterol. Hormones are partially built with cholesterol. There's so much that happens in our body that relies, like the mechanism to to firing of like there's so much. There's just so much. So our body has ways to increase cholesterol. So if it goes too low, we have multiple ways of increasing the amount of cholesterol in our body to make sure that we have enough cholesterol. This is what Dr. Berry has taught. And he also taught that low cholesterol is more dangerous than high cholesterol. Apparently, we need cholesterol, Wellness Warrior. And this is something that hormonally, women, once we get into our later years, we actually end up struggling a lot with. And what I learned is apparently some of this hot flash symptoms and all the things that are happening that we can't stand are happening because we don't have enough cholesterol. We don't have enough iodine. There's a lot of things that we're not encouraged to get enough of that cause our bodies to struggle. Men as well. So I can't just say women. Men also need cholesterol. Men also need iodine. But there's so many things that we struggle with because we're not encouraged to get enough of them, because we're cautioned away from eating the things that would give them to us. Because um, articles like this in the JAMA, so the JAMA research article, this case study encourages us to be afraid of something that we shouldn't be afraid of. Natural fat, animal source fat, keeping in mind that we are born into the world into a ketogenic state. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And yet what we're this is what the research is focusing its attention on. That's how I'm going to word that. This is what this research is focusing on. And then that research turns around and it makes a scenario where the people who write about this stuff in the news, that wasn't a news article, but even the real news sources come at it from this perspective because research is coming at it from this perspective. I want to talk about Rose. I interviewed her back in November of 2023, and she reminded me about the thing called volume eaters. You know, those people who can just, in one sitting, take in quite a large, as a matter of fact, I will call it huge amount of food. And I wanted to acknowledge the possibility. So, another reason that this man might have been able to eat 6 to 9 pounds of food. And I'm calling it food, even though it was cheese and butter and other fat sources along with his meat. I'm calling it food because it's better than eating fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds that are bringing in a bunch of toxins and sugar and damaging our bodies worse than real food: meat, fish, poultry, eggs, these animal sourced foods. But the thing that Rose helped me to understand is that even though I, not being a volume eater, get a huge signal when I eat pork belly, when I eat pork chops, when I eat ham or eggs or any kind of meat, when I eat, even when I eat fish, I get a huge signal from my body at some point saying, you've had enough. For me, that happens somewhere between and a pound and a half of pork chop, for example, or ground meat, or like somewhere between a pound and a half. If we're just talking meat, like I get a whoa enough. If I'm doing bacon and eggs, again, I will get that, especially if I scramble my eggs and capture the fat from the bacon. I will definitely get that signal. I 4 slices of bacon and like, let's say 8 to 10 eggs. I probably wouldn't be able to finish those eggs. I get that signal. And people who are not notoriously volume eaters get that signal. But if you are a volume eater, apparently you've learned to ignore it, or you just don't have access to those signals and therefore end up finishing your plate. So it's interesting to me because the man lost weight, had increased energy, and mental clarity, still eating what sounds like quite a bit of food. Was it too much food for him? I don't know. What was his size to start with? We don't know the answer to that. How much weight does he have to lose? We don't know the answer to that. But what we do know, and this is where my mind goes, he was losing weight. When I started keto years and years ago, I was losing weight, even though I was not in ketosis. So I started keto, didn't know what I was doing, and I was eating 75-ish grams of carbs when I finally got my food calculator and my scale and all my stuff and started to eat the way that I had been eating for the 3, 4, actually not even more. I was eating for like 2 or 3 weeks before I got my scale. Yeah. So before I got my scale, yeah, I was eating 2 or 3 weeks. I'd already started losing weight, lost a good amount of weight, and I wasn't doing keto. And it took me a few days, even after getting my scale, probably another week even, maybe a bit more, to get myself dialed into how much food is actually, because I was making the mistake of eating my meal and then calculating it rather than calculating before I ate it. Something that I've been teaching you guys because I lived the repercussions of not making that simple adjustment. What's my point? 75 grams for 2 weeks, I lost weight. And even when I was on my way down to 20, I lost weight. But even better, I was losing weight moving forward on that, even though my number to keep myself in a ketogenic state, Wellness Warrior, is actually not even 20, which I didn't know because I was losing weight. I only figured it out afterwards that my number is actually 18, right? When my body stops being damaged by these foods at 18, not 20, not 50, like, some of the keto numbers. So I was able to get so far into my journey and doing so well above my 18, lost 30, 40 pounds above my 18. Wellness Warrior, our body will still do amazing even if we're not doing the diet the way that it's described. Even if we're not in that ketogenic state that we think we are in, our body will still do amazingly better. Within a week of doing keto, I had more energy. I had some clarity and mental. I went through withdrawal. So I had pulled enough out to at least figure that out. All of those amazing things did happen for me. And yet, apparently, I wasn't in a ketogenic state yet. So, all that to say, your body can do amazing things if you give it the chance. And if you're a volume eater, there are some things that you really do need to put in place to help yourself to do the best that you possibly can. So I want to give you three core things that I want you to aim for. If you think that you might be suffering from what is, and I'm not even talking about the xanthomas, I'm talking about this ability. And again, the reason I want to talk about this article, twofold: a misunderstanding of what keto is. Keto and carnivore are, sorry, misunderstanding what carnivore is, because keto and carnivore are not the same thing. But second of all, carnivore is not eating fat on repeat and eating only fat. I've seen people, I've made thumbnails where I had a stick of butter that I was biting. Why? Because I'm not afraid of butter. But does that mean that that's what I had for a meal? Never. I've never had butter, only butter for a meal. Why would I do that? Like that's so that just doesn't make sense to me. I want us to understand what we're actually aiming for. We're aiming to eat the right protein source to give my body the right fat and protein to build fuel cleanly itself in a way that helps me to be able to live my life with energy, mental clarity, pain free. Just, I want to enjoy myself. So, it brings me the first rule that I have for you, that if you do this, your life is going to be better. And if you happen to be a volume eater, this is going to help you to solve that. Do not eat for fun. What does that mean? When you feel bored, don't eat. That's something that we were taught in the standard American, standard Canadian diet. Like, we were taught that we could eat for fun. Don't do that. Don't don't celebrate with food. Another way that we eat for fun. Oh, I did so well on my test, and I treat myself with a chocolate bar. That was my thing, right? Back in the day. I do so well. And I feel like we don't understand that we still do that today this way, right? Because we will do really well on our diet and then celebrate. So I lost 30 pounds. I get to eat something, right? Every time I get to a new marker, now I'm at 35 pounds. I get to eat something off plan, perhaps, or I get to eat some kind of extra big rich meal where I allow myself to push past what I normally would eat. Wellness warrior, please don't do that. Eating for fun is a bad idea. It keeps us trapped in this idea that food is not a building block and fuel. We're seeing food as entertainment. And then, if as soon as we see food as entertainment, we've opened the door that companies can pull us back in by getting us to eat things that aren't healthy for us. But also, even on this healthy way of eating, it's possible to overeat. Yes, if you eat too much fat, so more fat than your body actually needs, it will need to store it. You can only burn so much. You can only build so much. You can only use so much before your body will say, oh, okay, let's put that in storage. If you eat too much protein, your body will do the same thing. Oh, we don't need this for anything right now. We'll put it in storage. So if my goal is weight loss, if my goal is better health, if my goal is to get myself out there and do my activities and feeling amazing, do activities for fun and let your food be what it's supposed to be. My second thing, eat to satiation. We need to stop eating until we're full. Now, what I've noticed is that in this carnivore world where I'm only eating meat, fish, poultry, eggs, I don't even get to the part where I'm full. When I'm eating, at some point I get this kind of ick thing that happens, and I don't want any more. And when the ick thing happens, the food itself actually stops tasting good. That's a clear signal that your body is saying, hey, you don't need anymore. Now, I also help myself because I learned years ago on the normal diet that it takes a little while for the signal, so for your stomach to communicate to your brain, yeah, we've had enough. If you eat really quickly, Wellness Warrior, which a lot of people do, you'd be surprised. In my world, I'm paying attention, and it's amazing to me how I can be at a table with people eating, and I'm not even halfway done, and they're completed what they've been eating. It's a mistake, Wellness Warrior. The faster you eat, the less chance you have of getting that signal from your stomach, so that your stomach expands as the food is coming in, and that expansion does send a signal up to your brain to say, hey, we've had enough. So that's one of the signals. Then there's the how much fat came in, and that satiation thing that fat gives us. That again, what I've noticed is if I eat zero carbs, that satiation signal is quite strong and quite different than when you eat carbohydrates. It's a very clear, stop it, Violet. Don't put another bite in your mouth. And once I get to that actual point, I can't put another bite in my mouth. It's over. Are you allowing yourself to even interact with that if you're on a carnivore diet? If you're on a keto diet, you're not going to get that same sensation. Again, it took me a while to figure that part out. Here's what's interesting, Wellness Warrior. If you're doing carnivore, but you have sugary sauces on your meat, you don't get the sensation. So even back in the day, when I would eat ribs only as a meal before I did carnivore, I could still eat a whole set of ribs, so a whole rack, that now that I'm carnivore, I cannot get through. At some point, that same length of rack that I absolutely used to devour pre-keto with sugary sauce on it, carnivore can't get through a whole rack. There's something about that satiating fat when there's no sugar around. Now, the third thing is that you need to learn what to be hungry, to actually let your body get hungry. Volume eaters eat because they eat, not because they're hungry. That means that the time might be ruling when you have a meal. That means that scenarios, I'm at a party, I'm at a theater, I'm out for coffee. These events might be ruling when you're eating. My family's eating, so but you're not actually hungry. That was something that surprised me, Wellness Warrior. That so I was a person that in my normal standard American, standard Canadian diet way of eating was hungry all the time. I was hungry every hour and a half to 2 hours. On keto, that went away. Very quickly, I was doing 3 meals a day, no snacks, and very quickly, within like just a minimum amount of weeks, I was 2 meals a day, no snacks. And within 2 months, I was 1 meal a day keto. And I did that for years until I transitioned to carnivore, still 1 meal a day. If I'm hungry, I'll eat a second meal. I mentioned in my return video after the holidays that I was sick over the holidays, and actually I had lunch 2 of those days because I was hungry. And I believe it was because in my recovery portion of my illness, my body needed the extra energy and the extra nutrients, so it needed to build me, right? And it sent me out to get some food, and I had some ham and cheese during those lunches, and I mean a large amount, like a package of ham and a package of cheese. I ate half one day and half the other day, and I stopped eating the first half because I was just like, okay, I can't take another bite, and then I did the same thing the next day, And actually, I think threw away like one little slice of ham at the very end that was still in the container. But yeah, I got through more ham than in the history of being me. If we go back to before I did keto, that would have been probably at the minimum 4 or 5 sandwiches, maybe even six, like with the amount of, and that would have been with bread, right? And tomato and lettuce and all kinds of other things. So very different the way that I do things today. And I want you to learn how to be hungry. And that might mean, Wellness Warrior, that you are putting more and more time between meals. Now, my suggestion is always, because I understand how important fasting periods are, my suggestion is always to put time between your last meal and your first meal. And so, how far back can you push breakfast? But the goal is to not have breakfast until you feel hungry, and then not have lunch until you feel hungry, etc. Supper till you feel hungry. And more importantly, to not snack in between. You need to learn what it feels like to be hungry. Part one. Part two is to understand that the signal for hunger and the signal for thirsty are actually the same. And so, therefore, the other thing that we need to do is verify, well, am I actually hungry for food or is my body asking me for water? This was something that really shocked me when I started to test that, how often my body was actually asking me for water and that I could drink a little bit of water, a little bit, a lot, depending on how much my body asked me for. But I would drink, like, so it's a glass. So whether I drank a quarter of the glass because I felt like that's how much I wanted, or the full glass, I would then go forward 2, 3 hours, fine, no food ingested. My point is, are you allowing yourself to really understand what hungry is versus a water signal? Because my body has one way of telling me that something needs to come in, versus a cue from the world that it's time to eat, and I like eating, quote unquote, and therefore I end up eating when actually I shouldn't be. These things matter. And I want you to start slow, and I want you to verify these things. And if you do it slowly, what I've noticed is that most people end up with a longer eating window between supper and that first meal of the day. And we're able to condense down lunch and supper into a shorter eating window, which gives our body more time to heal. And ultimately, Wellness Warrior, we do these better diets because we want our body to heal. And so, giving your body that opportunity, giving your body that chance is really what you're looking for. So, let's do that. Let's give our body this positive thing that we can actually do and heal ourselves. Now, I just realized that I forgot to link Rose's video in the description. So, I'm going to do that a little bit later. But what I can do for you guys is I'm going to pop the actual link in the I'm gonna pop the link in the comment, the comment of this video at some point, or as soon as this video is over, so you can watch it. But I just realized I forgot to give that to you. And but that's the video. I think you should watch Rose's video. I'm interested to know what you guys are going to think about what Rose had to say. She said some very interesting things, and Rose is she helped me to understand or to look at some things again that I hadn't looked at in a long time. So let's do some comments. Hello, Stephanie. So you're going to watch later. Thank you for just popping in and letting me know that you're going to watch later. I appreciate that a lot. Hi, Pat. I'm glad you're able to jump in and say hello, as well as Gradual Legends. Hello. How are you doing? I'm always happy to see you here. Tanya Reynolds says hello. I'm so happy to see everybody was able to pop in. So I had sweat leak out of my body a lot on my low carb, hyper carnivore diet, sleeping, getting away from the standard American diet. I don't sweat cholesterol. Don't see how it's even possible. I definitely don't see how it's possible either. I don't think it's a reality that people were sweating cholesterol. That's why I wanted to, that people would like leak cholesterol. That's why I wanted to make this video. I feel like this person, and you know what? Pat was actually asking me, is it possible that there was a language barrier or like, but they were using, like, in the actual article, the person used the word eschews, which is like a nice big $20 word. So I feel like, no, this is not them, and they used it correctly. It's not them not knowing how to write appropriately. It was laziness. It was not doing the research, run on sentences and silliness because their goal was to just come in and bash carnivore more so than talk about carnivore in any meaningful way. And I'm gonna leave it there. Um, let's see. Good morning, wellness warriors. I'd love to know if you've. Oh, that was me. Haha. Actually, I do want to know. Have you guys ever had health issues that were specifically um, carnivore or keto related? I am curious to know if there are real things that happen. My biggest health related thing, but it was a health reveal more so than a health problem, was finding out that I was with doing withdrawal because of removing the carbohydrates from my diet. So that withdrawal, that just wrecked my 3 days, by the way, but it helped me to understand that carbohydrates need to stay out of my life. The other thing that I will say I've experienced on a keto diet was when you don't eat a certain type of veg for enough days, when you go back to it, the bloating and the problems of digestion that resume when you reintroduce um, a carb back into your diet. So the thing that I think, for me, the things that I noticed weren't problematic. They did help me to understand the positives that I was getting from eating healthy, because the bloating and all this stuff that I would had been living throughout my life, because I've mentioned this before. I'm not a person that actually likes vegetables and fruits. I never have. But there would be periods of time in my life where I would force myself to eat fruits and vegetables. And there's also like eating at friends' and families' homes. So you go to their home, they serve you a plate, there's vegetables on the plate, and you eat some because all the reasons, right? You don't want to be rude. You don't you don't want to look like a kid that you can't eat a vegetable, right? Maybe even the way they cook the vegetable tastes good this time, because I mean, honestly, I didn't like vegetables, so it's not like I was taking the time to cook them in a way that were going to be delicious to me, right? I would just cook them haphazardly because I didn't like them. Sometimes I'd go to people's homes and they cooked them in such an amazing way, and they were so fun tasting that I did eat them and I liked them. All that means that I would introduce a carb, so vegetable that I hadn't had for months, maybe even years, have all this bloating and gas and whatever. And I honestly feel like it happens so often. And not to mention that I still had bloating and gas from the bread and pizza and pasta and rice. And so all the stuff that I normally eat, that the fact that it was a little more probably didn't stand out to me as much as it should have. And do keto and carnivore. And so doing keto, and when I did my carnivore challenge, where I did it carnivore for 2 months and then reintroduced veg, that was where it really solidified to me, wow, it's reintroducing the vegetation that's causing the problem. So if I'm going to eat veg, I need to just keep some certain things that I plan to eat in rotation. And that's what I started to do. That's why I was having olives, avocado, and a particular salad that I liked from a restaurant that I was going to on rotation all the time, right? So 2 weeks was my sweet spot. I felt like if I went 3 weeks, sometimes it could mess with me. So I was doing at the minimum trying to have one of those things at least once every 2 weeks, And it worked. I didn't have the gas and the bloating and the whatever. But the flip side of the coin is I'm eating something that I need not eat. So, what was you guys' experience? So eat, pray, meat. I'm at a weight loss stall after the first 30 days of carnivore. I am going to keep going, but man, I'm frustrated. So, what I wonder about sometimes, and I've heard other keto channels talk about this. The one that comes to mind is Kelly Hogan, where we talk about, and I've talked about this too, like you can overeat fat. You can. So sometimes people go carnivore, but then they're eating past that feeling because they're trying to hit a certain amount of fat coming in. What I will say is we need to eat enough. And getting the right amount of protein in is important because our body is trying to rebuild itself. Getting the right amount of fat in is important because our body's trying to rebuild itself. It needs fat to rebuild itself as well. Our brain is completely fat. All of our cells are fat. So, right, we need fat coming in. So, having no fat come in is not never going to be the answer. But having too much fat come in can be part of the problem. If I have weight to lose, fat on my body, actual extra fat, then yes, I don't need to eat right up to the edge of how much fat my body will use daily. So in those occasions, eating less fat, so the fat to protein ratio being a little bit on the lower side is going to be helpful. At the same time, if I need the fat coming in because my body's trying to repair something and I'm keeping my fat purposefully low because I'm trying to force weight loss, our body is smarter than us. It's just going to hold on to the fat that's on us because it knows it needs the fat with the little bit of protein now that I'm giving it, trying to keep my fat low. And it's waiting for the protein to come in so that it can do the repairs that it needs. You're not helping yourself if you're trying purposefully to force your fat down in order to force weight loss. We cannot force weight loss unless we're actually legitimately like too eating too little. And in that case, your body's going to be giving you such screaming hunger signals. Like, you think that Minnesota study that Ansel Keys did, your body's going to be giving you screaming signals. You're going to be fixated on food and you're going to be thinking and trying to get, and you probably going to end up falling off a carnivore. So I don't know if you're overeating or undereating. All I know is both can cause this. My suggestion, if you're carnivore, I suggest you do carnivore without spices because even that small amount of spice that we don't see as a big deal is enough that it could impact your body and therefore allow you to eat more food than your body actually would be asking for. The number one thing that I was surprised about was that number one, I actually did like meat, fish, poultry, and eggs with only salt. Spicing my food that way tasted delicious to me day one. I was shocked, but day one it tasted delicious to me. I do understand though, if you try it and it's not delicious to you day one, understand it will get even better. So if it starts off kind of like meh, I'm telling you that today I I didn't think I could love my food. When I'm eating, I'm absolutely happy to be eating. And it's not because I'm starving. I can fast 2, 3 days. I can fast up to 5 days easily. When I take that decision that every time I get hungry, I'm going to drink water and I'm only going to start eating again when the signal that I get is like seriously no Violet, you're hungry. Like when that hunger signal and the water doesn't quell that hunger signal and I actually drink water and I'm hungry. So when that happens, I eat, or if I get a headache, I eat, or if I feel nauseous, I any signal that my body gives me that no, no, you need food, I eat. Easily, I still do 3 to 5 days, somewhere in that range. And that's with me like losing minimal weight. I'll lose like a pound, maybe a pound and a half. So I understand from what my body's telling me, I'm at goal weight. This is where my body wants to be. Well, and where I want it to be, because I still do put a little bit of extra fat in my coffee to just help me myself to like not drop too much. So I guess theoretically, if I stop putting that fat in my coffee, a month from now, I'd know what my body really wanted me to be at. But I don't think it would be more than a pound and a half, because when I fast at a pound and a half, that's when my body starts being like, what are you doing? Anyway, I'm suggesting to you, eat, pray, meat. Maybe what you want to do is do your carnivore just salt. Now, if you're already doing that, then are you allowing yourself to stop eating when you get that feeling of ugh? Or are you stopping well before that? I would probably try to eat a bit more if you're stopping well before that. Are you stopping well after that? I would stop when I get that signal. And so it might mean a little more meat on your plate. It might mean adding some eggs or something. Like you need to play with it. Like, how are you going to get to the point where you get that feeling of like, oh, okay, this isn't tasting the same. I have this feeling of kind of like, oh, I don't want any more. But it's not a distended fat stomach feeling. Like it actually is different. I really wish I could find a way to explain to you guys. The feeling that I get is just, ugh, I don't want any more. Even though like 3 bites ago, this was tasting delicious. It all of a sudden just stops tasting delicious. And then tomorrow, I could have the exact same meal and it's delicious again. To me, that's the biggest aha that I had in all of this. I hope that made sense. Gradual Legend says, yeah, because the adult liver is older and takes longer to work from general wear and tear, insulin hits the liver harder as an adult than a baby. So there's a question for me, Gradual Legends, that would our our liver be struggling this much if we were eating meat, so protein, animal source protein and fats, our entire diet? Would we struggle like this? And I personally think we wouldn't. Like again, all the research that were done on the Inuit and all these other cultures that don't have the processed carbohydrates that we have shows a very different story. And as much as I'm happy to have been born in this day and age, I'm sad that I was born into a day and age where we had this much processed food at my young age. I'm very happy that my parents limited it like a lot of what I was getting. I wish I did a better job of limiting what my daughter got in past the age of 4. I did a great job limiting it before the age of 4, and then I messed up. So I don't think that it's normal wear and tear. I think it's excessive wear and tear. And that's why I make these videos, because although the wear and tear has been excessive, what I understand from almost every keto carnivore doctor that's talking about keto and carnivore, if you start and are serious about what you're doing, internal health can be somewhat restored. To what level is going to be dependent on how much damage you've actually done. Luckily for me, I was never a drinker or using any other kind of chemical substance, right? So never a drinker. I mean, like hardcore. Like I had, like I drank at parties and events, but I wasn't drinking at home. That's never been a thing for me. So because of that, I'm very excited for the possibility of where can I get my body to by eating healthy. And I want everyone to understand that regardless of even if you were a heavy drinker or a smoker or whatever at any particular point in time, as long as you didn't cause damage that's not repairable, right? You still have a chance to like let your body heal itself by just feeding it the right stuff now, because our body is always trying to get in there and clean up. It's what it does. And that's a great question, Gradual Legends, of like, yes, we pray, meat, do you eat dairy? Because that is something that can cause problems as well. Um, for some people, dairy is very inflammatory. And like it's hard to tell who's going to have that reaction. Like I've noticed that if I'm moderate in the amount of dairy that I have, and again, moderation is a word that I can't stand, but like if I have dairy once in a blue moon, so if I treat it like a treat, like once in a blue moon, I don't seem to have a reaction. So that day, and by the way, the day that I had ham and cheese, the reason I did that is because I wanted a way to hold the ham in my office, and like because I was buying those thin slices, and I know when you try to pick them up, they just fall apart, right? Because they're sliced so thin. So I put them on the cheese and use it like as a sandwich. That being said, my original goal was to just go buy some meat, but I needed it to not be something I needed to cook or needed to eat warm because I was at my office. So all these little issues, I right, like kind of created the situation where I decided to buy ham and cheese. But on a regular basis, I don't eat cheese because I've learned from Dr. Eid that sometimes it can contribute to inflammation problems. So there's so much to keep track of, is my point, Wellness Warrior. It's part of the reason that articles like the one we were discussing today frustrate me because they take one idea, one symptom, and say, well, there's a reason you shouldn't do carnivore. All the positives that we can have versus all the foods that we eat that potentially create problems when we shouldn't be eating them. I'll say one more thing on dairy. Humans are the only animal that as adults still drink milk. And when I learned that, I was like, wow, that's kind of nuts. Why do we do that? But other animals don't do that. Once they become adults, they start drinking water. So again, should we even be having dairy? Is that the reason dairy messes with us so much? And maybe it is. So things to focus on, things to think about. T. Lewis. Hi, Violet. Good morning. Good to be here. Thanks for the insightful review. I'm very happy that you found it insightful. Thank you. When I was hyper carnivore, I had 1 pound of lamb legs with 3 eggs cooked in butter, and I was full. I never felt so full and my plate was super small. I did not feel hungry for a long time. So for me, I'm typically doing 1 pound of some kind of meat, 4 eggs, and I sometimes will either have like I usually cook in either lard, tallow, or and butter, or a combination of the three. So some kind of of the two. So butter and tallow, or lard and butter. So and sometimes instead of having the eggs, I'll have bacon and meat, and then I'll have 4 slices. Four seems to be the number that I kind of gravitate to. 4 eggs or 4 slices of bacon. But honestly, I do feel that for me, that's a bigger meal because I was not eating anywhere near a pound of meat back in my normal way of eating. Probably I would have been getting in maybe half that, maybe 200 grams of meat. So a little bit less than half. Um, yeah, so and even when I do doesn't matter the meat, I try to get it to be at least a pound. Um, and I also did not have inflammation. Okay. You are right. This is why I eat low carb fruit like tomato and cucumbers and peppers. Don't follow me because I actually thrive on nightshades. A lot of people don't. Raising my hand, I definitely don't thrive. Nightshades was one of the first things that I ended up reacting to and learning that hurt my body. But the other problem that I will just throw out there for you to think about, gradual legends, is that Sally Norton also helped us to understand that it's not just um, like there's more toxins in these things than we're even knowing. And the problem that she pointed out with things like peppers, cucumbers and tomatoes is that we're eating the seeds of this plant. And so that's where there's going to be more toxins. So just something I'm going to throw out there for you to think about. And and of course, so you're saying that you're also one meal a day. Okay. Pat is replying. Is there anything I need to talk about there? Nope. Okay. Um, so that's a conversation between you and Pat. Nishan T. I'm doing keto. It has been 3 weeks and I am not losing weight. Is there any advice? Thank you. I would probably imagine that you might still be having too much carbohydrate. So my only thing I would want you to first verify is your carb count at 20? Just to start. Because most people going from a standard diet to a keto diet and they get their carb count down to 20, lose weight. So it isn't just about eating fruits and vegetables and meat and adding more fat, which is the key thing that I want to make sure that people understand. And the reason Pat sent me this article was that he feels like it's the same kind of story that people think that keto is just adding fat to everything. And he wondered if this person thought carnivore was just adding even more fat to everything. And in fact, that's not what it is at all. A healthy keto diet is actually about removing the carbohydrates that are causing health problems in your life. So it's about getting them down to less than 20 grams every day. And where your carbohydrates come from isn't specifically spoken about, but if you want to have a satisfying meal, most people do find that 20 grams of carbohydrates from a salad or broccoli or cauliflower or like most of the low glycemic vegetables, the leafy greens and those kind of things, they tend to be more satisfying meals than if you're eating 20 grams of carbohydrates from an apple, because that's like really going to be one. Actually, you can't even eat the whole apple unless you eat a small one, but one apple and your whole day of carbohydrates is gone. Um, like half an orange, maybe three quarters of an orange, your whole day of carbohydrates is gone. Half a potato, your whole day. So like it makes it really hard to have satisfying meals when you do keto if you allow yourself to keep focusing on high carbohydrate vegetables and vegetation. And I mean, don't even get me started. Like you can have like a just a little bit less than a half a cup of rice, I believe, to get to your 20 grams of carb. So, but you can look all this stuff up if I'm misremembering anything. So my advice to you, Nishan, to eat is to weigh your food and put it in a food calculator just to make sure that you're actually doing 20 grams to start. Now, most food calculators are going to be um, net. So if you check and at 20 net you're not able to get into a ketogenic state and therefore you're not losing any weight, because that's what that means, right? If you're not losing any weight, it means you didn't get your body into a ketogenic state, which again is surprising because I was only at 75 and I was losing. So it might just be that you're misunderstanding what you're trying to accomplish, which is fine. That's why I make these videos. You want to bring the amount of carbohydrate down. And so before you eat whatever you're going to eat for the day and you weigh it and insert it into your tracker, you're going to get a carb number. And that's going to let you know, okay, let's say you were eating an apple, this apple is costing me 25. That's 25 grams of carbs. So you're already five over. This is the reason that people need to do some research and find those low glycemic vegetables, the salads, and like even gradual legends are saying that they eat peppers. Peppers, if you're put like, a quarter of a pepper into your salad, how much carbohydrate is that? So all of these things kind of push us. And then we have to understand that on our keto diet, because if I'm eating peppers and what were the other things you said you're eating? Peppers and cucumbers and tomatoes. Yes, I'm doing a carnivore diet. And those carbs are going to count towards whether my body is behaving the way that I want it to behave or not. So I hope that's helpful, Nishan. If you have more questions, if you have a clarifying question, let me know because I feel like I explained it, but maybe there's more to say. So let me know. Let's see. So more conversation back and forth. Zana Taylor on carnivore after doing so you're on carnivore after doing keto. I've experienced loss of inflammation. That's terrific. Better sleep. Terrific. More energy. That is also terrific. But I am not losing any weight. And my hair is falling out. I am not at my wits' end, not overeating. I am at my wits' end, not overeating. So I feel like, first of all, I'm not sure how long. How long have you been doing carnivore? Can you let me know, Zana, how long you've been doing carnivore? One thing that I will acknowledge is that a change to our diet can be felt as a shock to the body. So when people change their diet abruptly, that can be problematic. And it's in both directions. So I noticed going from standard American diet to keto diet, and I did it overnight, I had withdrawal. My body was in shock, right? And it was trying to catch up, and I had withdrawal, right? So that's a signal that my body's struggling. I didn't lose my hair, but losing my hair could have been a reaction to me going from all the sugar coming in the world to not having sugar. Now, even though you were doing keto and you go from keto to carnivore, it's still another shock to the body, especially if you did it abruptly. Now, when I went from keto to carnivore, I did it the most gradual way that anyone could ever have done it because over the course of 6 years, I so the first 2 years of it, I was keto, eating low glycemic vegetables and meat. And then at about 2 years to 4 years in, my consumption of vegetation came down gradually but dramatically because I started to understand from the doctors that I was watching who were much more on the carnivore side of things, I don't need to be making all those vegetables. I work a lot. I don't want to be in the kitchen longer than I need to. I just decided to stop cooking some of these things that were taking too much of my time, and I was really happy about it. By the end, I was having broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, avocado, and olives, and salads, Caesar salads, and the salad that from the restaurant that we like to go to. Like those were the things that I was eating from your like, let's say three and a half, sorry, two and a half to three. Sorry, two and a half to four. And then from year 4 to 6, like somewhere in there, so four and a half, let's say, to 6, I was seriously whittling down to just avocado, olives, and the restaurant salad that we were getting every other week. And that's what I was having on rotation. Basically meaning that 2.5 days a week I was having vegetation. So I'm keto 2.5 days a week because I'm having vegetation 2.5 days a week. And three, no, 4.5 days a week, right? No, 3.5 days a week um I was having I don't know math. 4.5 days. Yeah, it is. It's 2.5 days vegetation, 4.5 days no vegetation. So I was having 4 days to 5 days a week carnivore days, and then 2 days to 3 days a week where I was having that salad and other vegetation. And I can tell you that because I did it so gradually, that switch over to carnivore when I just finally said, "Oh, I'm not eating avocado, olives, and that salad anymore." I didn't feel anything like at all. No, no change. It was it was absolutely normal. However, reverse it, wellness warrior. Every time that I was nice and steady on my diet, eating something like, so I have a certain way of eating, and I reintroduce some kind of vegetation, my body showed a reaction. Whether it was bloating and that kind of stuff, or whether I had joint pain come back. Um, a few times I had rashes happen. I had skin issues happen, depending on, like, so for the oil stuff, like when I didn't use coconut oil for the longest time, and then I brought it back, and my skin started to freak the heck out. If I use avocado oil, um, and I've had reactions like gut reactions. So yes, our body does show stress reactions, and my understanding from my work that I actually do, so I'm not talking about this stuff, this keto stuff, but my actual work, hair loss is a stress reaction. Your body, and it can come from psychological trauma and it can come from physiological trauma. And changing the way you eat dramatically overnight to the body is a stress. And I think we don't pay enough attention to that. The same way that working out is a stress. That's why when you work out, the next day your body's in a bunch of pain. You totally stressed it. And it has to get used to it. So, Zana, my suggestion to you is, I mean, you've already started carnivore. I would allow my body to get used to it, and I would monitor my hair. And I would try to see, I would try to make sure that I eat enough fat to feed my body so that it can, because protein and fat, it needs to, like, obviously regrow that hair and whatever. You want, but you also want to be not stressed about this. So if I'm freaking out about my hair loss, and I don't know if you're talking about coming out in clumps or if you're talking about like all over strands, because so another thing that I did notice about myself was that my hair grows faster now, but that also means I drop more hair. So this is another thing that I noticed it started with keto, though not carnivore. Like, I did notice it, though, is that my hair was just growing so fast. I was getting haircuts, instead of getting them like every 6 months. It slowly increased to right now I'm actually getting my hair cut like less than every 3 months, which is like odd for me. My entire life I was getting my hair cut twice a year, and my hair wasn't growing that long for for my community, but not long, by typical standards. But yeah, like, it would get to shoulder and I would cut it, and it would get to shoulder and I would cut it. And then it was like to the point where, like, it was getting to shoulder so fast. And now, I mean, I'm at the point where I don't even let it get to shoulder, but I do see how much more quickly my hair is growing. So this is the other piece of the puzzle. And what I'm wondering about is, like, obviously because my hair grows faster, I do drop more hair because it's normal, right? Your new growth is pushing out the follicle from the old growth, because, like, they let go and they restart, right? So that's a question mark for me, Zana, but I don't know the answer. So I feel like this is a question that I would encourage you to go on one of the carnivore doctors channels and ask the same question, because they might have a different answer for you specifically about the hair loss. But like I said, in the actual work I do, alopecia is what it's called when it's like seriously happening, like when it's severe. Um, some people end up like with this when they have severe trauma. A lot of that's psychological trauma or physical, like people who have been aggressed physically could end up with severe spots. But I've not heard of it for carnivore, so that's why I'm like in that sense that you have severe spots. It's more of a all over. I'm losing hair more quickly, but there aren't any bald spots. And I think when people kind of calm down and just watch what's happening with their head, what they realize is that, yeah, my hair is just growing in faster, but like I'm not having any actual spots. So Zana, I look forward to next week. Maybe if you could, like, kind of monitor that and let me know, like, If there are spots, that's different. And also, like I said, I would talk to a keto or carnivore doctor and see what they have to say. They're very good at answering their comments, usually. And I would even go on TikTok and DM, like, some of those keto carnivore doctors, because I do they're nice people. I think they'll answer you. And like, it's a simple question. The fact that you're not overeating is great, but could you be under eating? Again, if you're stressing your body, so if your body wants more food and it's stressed out by that and you're not giving it to it because you're trying to force a weight loss, that could also be problematic, Zana, because our body will react to the lack of energy and protein, so protein and fat that it needs to build and repair and energize itself, as a stress. So this is again where I really encourage people to take your time, learn about keto or carnivore before you start. Because if you don't understand what you're trying to accomplish, we can make mistakes. T. Lewis, um, I really need to learn hungry. Okay, I really need to learn hungry. I grew up with being either starving or super stuffed. Not good. But I want to know how real, reasonable hunger feels. Yeah, T, I would definitely encourage you in that case to allow yourself to get your first meal when you feel you will get a signal from your stomach at some point of hunger. Now, if your stomach really doesn't know how to talk to you, I'd be surprised, but theoretically, if it doesn't know, you're going to get all the way from supper to supper without feeling hungry. And in that case, now the other question is there anything that you're trying to heal? Because if I can get from supper to supper without feeling hungry, my first question is, why are we eating when we're not hungry? But second of all, does that mean that I should be fasting? If I easily get from supper to supper and I'm still not hungry when supper time comes around, does that maybe mean that I should be fasting and my body actually has things to clean up? So I would encourage you to look into that. But very likely what will happen is that you'll get hungry at some point. And then I encourage you, drink some water, see if that's a request for water, and see what happens. And if you drink the water and you feel fine for another 2, 3 hours, you weren't hungry, you were thirsty. So because when you're hungry, like 5 minutes later, you're gonna be hungry. You drink the water, but like seriously, 5 minutes later, your body's gonna be like, nope, I want food. So I think this could be a good thing for you to try, T. And what I would suggest is twofold. I would start this, so I would try it the first time, if you've never done this before, on the weekend, so that you don't have anywhere particular to go and like you can just make breakfast whenever you want to. And then that's what I would do. I would make breakfast when I'm ready to make breakfast. So at that moment, I would when I feel hungry, like I would make breakfast. And if that breakfast happens 5 minutes after I normally would have been hungry, so I'm sorry, I drink some water. And then if I'm hungry, like 5 minutes later, then I would eat breakfast. But I would also encourage you, Lewis, to verify. Am I wanting to eat because I'm used to eating at this time and that's what I would be doing and I don't have something else to do? And so insert boredom. Make sure that it's a Saturday, but that you have stuff to do. So don't just sit around waiting to get hungry. Plan yourself some stuff, right? Are you gonna work on a project that you've always wanted to work on? Are you gonna maybe go visit friends? So you're getting ready to go visit friends, although we usually visit friends around food. But whatever. Are you like, can you find something to do? Maybe there's a room you wanted to reorganize in your house, and this would be the perfect opportunity to reorganize it, or like work on something that you actually want to work on. And then when you feel hungry, and you have your water with you and like the water isn't satisfying you, then okay, now I'm hungry. This is what real hunger feels like, right? It's that kind of scratching, itch in you in your tummy that's saying get something to eat that doesn't go away. Even if I drink water, it doesn't go away. Even right? And if I and I the part of the reason I also don't want you to cook before that, you don't want the breakfast just waiting there. If you normally have eggs and bacon, then when you get hungry, that's when you go make your eggs and bacon. Again, the thing that I'm trying to allow my body to do is show me that it actually is hungry. If I start cooking this eggs and bacon and my hunger goes away, I wasn't really hungry, right? And often we'll notice that. And this was a little like light bulb moment for me when I was first doing one meal a day. That by the time I would say, "Oh, I'm hungry," and then I would get up and go to the kitchen and start taking things out to make breakfast and realize, "Oh, I'm not hungry anymore." My body took some energy from me. I wasn't a real hunger yet. But somewhere near the end of the day, yes, I would absolutely be able to make lunch. Let's say if it was one of those days, or even supper, I would actually be able to make it because okay, now I was hungry. I hope that's helpful. Um, Hello, sing it. I'm so glad to see you here. So that looks like it's the end of my comments. So I'm just like really happy to see that um, everybody made it here. Wellness Warrior, I mean, I'm saying goodbye tentatively right now because I don't see any more questions. But I want you to know that every single um, Saturday, sorry, Monday, I go live. Everything goes Saturday. I'm so confused in my days, Wellness Warrior. I want to make sure that you know that I go live every single Monday. And I do that because honestly, it's cool for me to come in here and talk to you guys. This video that I did today, I was able to do because of the channel supporters who they help me put time aside to kind of gather my information. I still had to watch videos from Dr. Barry and Dr. Bickman and kind of grab that clip from Dr. Bickman to be able to share with you guys the information that so like these channel supporters, patrons, people who directly contribute through the link that I have in the description below, and people who contribute through YouTube. I appreciate you. I thank you. I like you do give me some extra time here and there to do some stuff, and I do appreciate it. I would love to be able to buy some of these articles, but they're quite pricey. But I would love to be able to buy the article, read the article myself, and come back and tell you, do I even agree with the JAMA article and the conclusions that they come to, and why yes, why no, right? So, if you would like to see me do that, consider becoming a patron or a contributor at the link that I have below. I It really does help. I just want to make sure that you guys know that it actually does help. So I will be live again next week on Monday at 11:20. I'll talk to you then. Watch Rose's video. I'm going to link it as soon as I exit out of this video because I just want you guys to know that she gave me some great information, some great things that we had a great conversation, and she reminded me some things. And I'm sure she's going to remind you guys of some things. So check out that video. And I just want to say, hey, Robert, I'm glad that you were able to make it today. And I'll talk to everybody. Talk to y'all next week. Have a great rest of the day, guys.